Welcome back to the ETF Inspector. It's Monday, October 6th, a little after 8 o'clock at night, and this is our daily recap video for YieldMax's weekly paying funds, ULTY, the Ultra Option Income Strategy Fund, SLTY, the Ultra Short Option Income Strategy Fund, and LFGY, the Crypto Industry Option Income Fund. Reminder, I'm on X at ETF_Inspector1, posting all things related to the videos I make and the ETFs I cover. Before I get into it, I do want to direct you to, I've had a lot of people talking about blocks, looking for a deep dive into that. So I made that video yesterday. It looks like a handful of you have watched it, but obviously there's still a good bit who have not. So if you're interested, all the ins and outs of blocks, how it works, what they're invested in, how they're generating income, what they're paying, all that good stuff. It's a quick, maybe quick 21-minute video, but it's kind of walk you through the research so you don't just have to do it on your own. All right, we'll look at the market today. It was nice and green, so it's going to be good for two of our funds, not so much for the short fund. But ULTY starting off, closing at 553. I thought it closed at 552, but either way, up 1.1%. We basically started up as soon as the market opened and never looked back, so we are loving that. We'll look at all the individuals within the fund when we get to our spreadsheet. LFGY, another great day. They're just stacking those up. We're on a month of great days, up 10, almost 11% over the past month. Let's see what ULTY was. ULTY, not so much. Basically flat, down 0.09%, but over that month it has also paid us out weekly distributions. LFGY is just really kicking butt, up almost 11% and paying weekly distributions as well. SLTY, that's another story. SLTY down 1.8% over the past month. They're down 17+%, and since inception they're down over 20% already. So they did not take long, opening up in end of August, late August, we'll say, at 50, and they're already in the 30s. It's just not the market to be shorting right now. All right, so fortunately we did not have a ton of trades today, so we won't spend a lot of time on that. We'll start off on ULTY. No shares trading hands, just options. So Coinbase, first of all, just adjusting their strikes there, obviously because they got blown through. As you can see, paying $24+ per share to close out those calls. That cost $2.4 million on that roll. Still keeping it within the same week, just adjusting the strike up to $385. Next we have Figma. Same thing. Had to close the 54s and sell 59s instead, still for the same week. That cost $1.7 million. Quantum Computing, at least we had one win in there. Closing out those 27s and 2750s, adjusting them down to 24s still this Friday. That brought in a credit of $237,000. Rigetti had to close 36s and sell 43s for this week on the calls. That cost over $11 million. Rocket Lab was closing their 53s and selling 59s for this week. That cost almost $6 million. And Symbotic closed their $61 calls and sold 69s, all still for this week. That cost $2.8 million. So as far as the options trading for the day, we had a debit or loss of $24 million. But there's a reason they do that, because if the share price has blown through that strike, once it's past it, every amount that it goes up, we don't get to appreciate in our market value of our fund any, because it just keeps on making the cost more and more to close it out. So if they close the option, sell a new one, now we're back to, if the underlying goes up, we get to move up with them. So that's what you're paying for active management with that 1.3 or 1.4% fee. So let's take a look at how the individual underlyings performed within the fund. Affirm was up 1.3%. They've got calls sold at 80 and puts sold at 66. They're 5.5% and 13% out of the money. Bullish was up over 6% today. Still out of the money, just barely on those $69 calls, 0.3%. and 70s are 1.7% out. Bitmine Immersion had a huge jump up 11.6%. And you know you like that when it doesn't have green on it, so that means something else jumped even higher. But 59s and 61s sold are 6.6 and 3.5% in the money. Next, we've got Centene Corporation. We don't own any shares, so it's just the options themselves. The share price closed at 37.64. There's puts sold at 39, so they are 3.6% in the money. Coinbase was up 1.59%. We just talked about it. They closed out those 365s, adjusted them up to, I think it was 385s, and then we still have 380s in play that are 1.5% in the money. CoreWeave was down 0.7. They've got 143s and 145s, pretty evenly split, 6,000 contracts and 6,800. They are 6.8 and 8.3% out of the money. First American Government Obligation Funds, $636 million to go along with $88 million in cash. We call that our dry powder, but we do have to account for the collateral that it would take to close out the put spreads. Now, my understanding from talking with people more knowledgeable than myself is that they would not just hold enough money to cover the spread, but enough money as if they had the shares. I still don't fully understand the reasoning behind that, but they're saying that we basically don't have a lot of money sitting on the sideline. Figma was up 7.3, almost 7.4%. They did close those deepest in the money calls. They still have 58s in play that are 1.8% out of the money, and they've also sold $44 puts to help pay for their protective puts. They're 22% out. Galaxy Digital is another put spread, no shares, closing at 38.84. They've got puts sold at 35.50. They're 8.6% out of the money. Hims and Hers was up 4.23%. They have 58s, 59s, and 60s sold, 5.9, 7.7, and 9.5% out of the money. Robinhood was down almost 3% today. They didn't get the memo that everything's supposed to go up. So that actually brought these 148s back out of the money by 2.5%, and their 152.50s, $152.50 calls are 5.7% out of the money. Lucid Group Inc. down 3% as well. That takes their $25 calls 4% out of the money. Lululemon is another of our put spreads that we don't own any shares in. They closed at 174.12. Puts sold at 180 are 3.3% in the money. MP Material Corp up almost 4%. Still another 3.5% to go on those 77s. Strategy was up 2.29%. Took their $352.50 calls into the money by 2%, and their 365s are out by 1.5%. Open Door was the big winner today, up 14+%, taking them back up in over the 9s. And their $9 calls are now 3% in the money. No action was taken, though. That one swings a lot. We could drop right back out of it in no time. Palo Alto Network got puts sold at 207.50 that are 2.3% out of the money. Palantir was up 3.7%. They've got $182.50 calls along with 185s, evenly split, 5,000 each, 1.6 and 3% out of the money. Pony AI down 1.1%. $25.50 calls are almost 9% out of the money. Quantum Computing was the big loser today, down just about 10%. Even with that, they still have $20 calls that are almost 10% in the money. They've got $24.50 calls that are now 10.5% out of the money, and they took the win on their two further out positions and rolled them to a closer strike. Rigetti was up over 4% today. Everything was already in the money and went deeper. The worst ones got rolled. The 37.50s are still in play and in the money by 10%. Rocket Lab was up over 4%. Again, everything was already in the money and went deeper. The 53s got rolled. The 55s are still in play, almost 6% in the money. Rocket Companies was down 4.8%. They got 19s and $20.50 calls that are 12.1 and 21% out of the money. Now, for some reason, I thought I saw Rocket. Oh, no, it was just Rocket Lab, not Rocket Company. So 12 and 21% out. New Scale Power up 4.5%. Still got 42.50s and 43s in play, 1.3 and 2.5% out. They've also sold $33 puts to help pay for the $37 puts. They're 21% out of the money. SoundHound AI up 2.25. 19s and 1950s are 4 and 6.8% out of the money. Symbotic was up 7.5%. These 61s were already in the money and went deeper. They got closed and rolled. 64s are still in play. They're 5.6% in the money. And Upstart Holdings was up 1.25. $57 calls are 8% out of the money, and $46 puts are 12.5% out of the money. 66 million. Now, I don't think that's what I copied and pasted over. So for some reason it updated after I was already done doing everything. So we'll adjust it. Only takes a second. Extra 250,000. We'll take it. Not that it matters, because that's not an exact number. That's just the change in market value of the underlying shares. Every single option changes in price every day as well. There's not an automatic pull for that, and I'm not looking up the price of every single option every single day. So this just gives us a general idea. All right, like we said, ULTY closed at 553 at the start of the day. Assets under management 3.3 billion, 609 million outstanding shares, and our NAV at the start was 547. So we moved up nicely. Like we said, a little over 1%. And that's everything we've got. So next we're going to move over to, we'll go to LFGY next. They had such a good day. All right, a lot more trades on LFGY. But where before I think I might have been calling this selling shares in order to be able to pay the distribution. That's not the case. So we've been on such a run lately, running up big time. This is taking profits. So they sold a portion of shares of every single underlying within the fund. Let's see what that totals up to. Oh, come on. Struggling with this thing doesn't want to cooperate. So almost $5 million worth of profit taking there, 4.8. And then basically all the trades here are just, for the most part, closing out the what's already in play, the options along with these shares. It's not a complete adjustment. In fact, there was only one adjustment, and it was MBTX. So we actually lost or spent $382,000 to adjust those sold calls from 280 up to 305. Adjusted the purchased calls on that as well. All right, so that's going to be a negative overall on the options trading side of things, right? That doesn't take into account the taking profit on the shares. So that does play into the weekly generated income, but we would need to know what the cost average was on every single one of these in order to know how much of a profit it actually was. So that's why we're just kind of estimating. So it cost us $448,000 on the options trading. As you can see, our shares went up nicely in value, 7-ish million. We'll see how that came to be. Bitmine Immersion right off the bat, the big winner, up 11.6%. Took their 59s into the money by 6.6%. They're still in play. BitDeer Technology up 7.5%. Took their $20 calls into the money by over 4%. CleanSpark up 9+%. took their $16 calls in the money by over 8%. Coinbase was up almost 1.6%. 420s are still looking just fine, almost 8.8% out. Core Scientific up 0.5%. $19 calls are 6% out of the money. Circle Internet Group up 1.87%. They've got $165 calls that are 11% out. iShares Ethereum Trust ETF went up almost 4.5%, taking their 3550s just barely in the money by 0.81% or 29 cents. 3.1 million in government obligation funds, but negative 3.4 in cash, so no dry powder to speak of. Galaxy Digital up 7.4%, still out of the money by about 3% on those $40 calls. GameStop, we got some goofy stuff going on. Hopefully, when we download the next holdings, we'll get rid of these. I believe it's something related to warrants or swaps, and that's not a topic that I'm knowledgeable in. But GameStop was down 1.3%, and their calls at 27 are 7.8% out. Robinhood was the big loser, down almost 3%. $155 calls are 7.4% out of the money. Hut 8 Corp was up almost 3.3%, still 8.6% out on those sold 45s. iShares Bitcoin Trust ETF was up another 2.12%. They're literally up like $10 over the course of like a week and a half. So that no options to trade on them. I don't know why. I still don't understand why. There's options trading on that. But Mara was up 9.3%, and this is great news because that huge increase only took our options in the money by 0.3% or 7 cents. So we were able to capture a large portion of that, 1.1 million. MBTX, we said it already. They went up big, and their sold calls went deep in the money. Well, deep enough that they paid to close them out and adjust them up to 305. They've also got these purchase puts that they're trying to generate income on, and they just keep on losing value because MBTX is climbing with all crypto. Mercado Libre down 0.8. Their $2,290 calls are 6.3% out of the money. Strategy or MicroStrategy up 2.3%. Still another 1.5 to go on those 365s. NU Holdings was up almost 0.5%. They're close. 1550s are 0.75% out. Nvidia was down 1.1%. They're 2.4% out on those 190s. Opera was up 0.22%. $20 calls for October 17th are 11.5% out of the money. PayPal Holdings was up just about 3%, taking their $70 calls into the money by 1.8%. Riot was up 10.9% and still another 2% to go. Got to capture all that. That's beautiful. $22 calls are 2% out. And finally, Block was up just over 1%. And there's still 2.8% to go on those 80s. So that is how we had a $7+ million increase in the value of our holdings, our shares. We're over 200 million and obviously climbing. 206 is where we started the day. A little over 5.5 million outstanding shares. And the NAV when the day started was 37.08. We're up over 38 now. So everybody in LFGY is probably happy as can be. And speaking of LFGY, very similar to LFGY is blocks, right? And so that's why I made the spreadsheet on this, and I made the video that I talked about in the beginning. And guess what? You wouldn't even be cheating on YieldMax because the people who are behind it are Jay Pestricelli and Scott Snyder. So if you like the way trading works on LFGY, then you'll probably like it for blocks as well. I did forget. I assume you guys watched the Sunday week look ahead and guesstimate video, but in case you didn't, ULTY, I made the guesstimate of 9 cents, and on Monday's actually when they make the decision. So based on how well things went Monday, I would actually figure it to be higher, not higher than 10, but just not dead on 9. I think they'll give a little more than 9. Similarly, LFGY, I made the estimate of 50 cents, 50 cent. And again, with how well that did, I wouldn't be surprised if it were 50 something cents, not just 50 even. All right, now finally, SLTY. SLTY. Don't know what to say about this one. They're struggling. So they closed out some shares of Duolingo and Lemonade, but not completely. So we're not out of them, just closing some out. I wouldn't call it taking profits. And then BitDeer, they adjusted their puts closer to the money, because if everything goes up, then your puts that you're selling are way far out. You close them, call it a win, and try to get more premium out of them. That brought in almost 18,000. Duolingo, this wasn't a complete close and roll. It was just to go along with the shares that were closed out. So that cost $500, no big deal. Iron, closing and adjusting their puts closer to the money, brought in 6,000. Lemonade, it does line up 80 to go with 8,000, but they actually had line items that were complete at 80. 80 sold puts, 80 sold calls, and 80 purchased calls. So that cost $3,900 to close them out. Finally, Tesla keeps going up as well. So closed out their $415 puts and sold 430s for $2,600 profit. All in all, they had a credit of $22,000 on the trading day. It's going to go along with the share values dropping by $366,000. And if you missed Sunday's video, my guesstimate for them, 62.5 cents. If I were to adjust this one, I'd probably head closer to 60. But I leave them alone. I'm just letting you know. They make the decision on Monday, so I make my guesstimate on Sunday. Actually, I did it on Saturday night and aired it on Sunday, so I would guess probably closer to 60, but we'll leave it alone. Next, let's take a look at how the underlyings performed. Astera Labs was up an even 10% today, but you don't want things to go up if you shorted them, because that dropped their value by 100,000. Sold puts and sold calls here, 10 and 12% out of the money. Bloom Energy Corp, the big loser, which is good in this case, because if you shorted them, you want them to go down. 3.68% drop. Puts are 5.7% out, even with the drop. BitDeer Technology was up 7.5%. They went ahead and rolled those puts to a closer strike. They've also got sold calls, 2.9% out of the money at $21.50. Circle Internet Group was up 1.87%. Sold calls are 21% out. Sold puts are 7.75% out. Duolingo down almost 0.75%. Puts are still 4% out at $307.50. Calls are 18+% out at $380. Enphase Energy up almost 1%. $35.50 puts are 4.5% out of the money, and 44.50s are 19, almost 20% out. GitLab up almost 0.5%. 45.50s are 3.5% out. $55 calls are 16+% out. Iron, the big winner, up 14.45. It's not a winner in this group though. That dropped the value by almost 150,000. They went ahead and took their profits, closing out that put as a winning trade on the put itself, and rolled to a closer strike. $60 calls are sold 3.9% out. As you can see, their purchased calls are now in the money by almost 9+%. So those, as the download comes out late tonight, those will have increased in value by a lot. Kratos up 4.2%. Sold puts are at 91 or 9% out. Sold calls at 114 or 13+% out. Lemonade was up 2.9%. Remember, they closed out the 80 puts, 80 sold calls, and 80 purchased calls. They do still have sold calls at 63, 12% out of the money, and sold puts at 51, 9% out. Nebius Group was down 2.38%. $118 puts are 5.5% out of the money. $150 calls are 20% out. RH down 3.61, closing at an even $200. And they're actually in the money on those sold puts, 1.25% on the 202.50s. Finally, Tesla up almost 5.5%. They adjusted the put strike price. They've still got calls sold at $495 that are 9% out of the money. So all in all, that resulted in that $366,000 decrease in value. When the day started, the fund was worth $16 million. So $16 million and dropping. 400,000 outstanding shares. NAV was $40.29 when they started, dropping to a share price of $39.76. And after 25 minutes, that is all the data I have for you. So I got a dad joke before I let you go. But before that, just thank you for all the support, all the likes, shares, comments. If you guys are not familiar or not aware or not on X, we do make a Spaces talk. It's kind of like a podcast. It's almost like a sports show type theme. It's pretty cool. And Ambassador, I thought it would have been on there. Ambassador of Quan is the host. Parabolic Code is the co-host. And you're actually able, if you go to his page, you're going to have to scroll because he posts a whole lot. But if you scroll back to his Sunday, it'll have the title, the ULTY and SLTY, and you can click on it and listen to it. Again, we talk all things ULTY and SLTY. It's not the same as watching one of my videos, so it's not like you've already got it. It's definitely not just talking numbers. It's very interesting. So you just go to his page, click on play recording, and listen to that. And if you're ever wanting to ask questions, there's opportunity for the audience to ask myself or him or the other panelists any questions. All right, so that was I'm really making you wait for the dad joke. So here it is. How do you get a country girl's attention? A tractor. That's a good one. All right. Thank you for watching. Have a good night. Catch you in the next video. Good luck trading tomorrow.